Hello guys. Okay, so today I want to share this with you. The last time we had a video on, or we had a discussion on children with special needs, and I promise you I'm going to take it one after the other and discuss. So today I'm going to discuss with you how to handle children with visual impairment in the classroom, specifically in the classroom. And the same advice we can also choose as parents and use them with children with visual impairment. When we talk of visual impairment, we have those who are totally blind and we have those with low vision. Okay, so before we go into how to handle children with visual impairment, we are going to discuss what visual impairment really is, or what blindness really is. When it comes to defining visual impairment, we have two definitions. We have that which concern legal definition, and we also have educational definition. You get it? Okay. And so legally, one is considered visually impaired or blind when the person's visual acuity is 20/200. And so when we talk of 20/200, we are looking at what someone can see at 200 feet. Someone with visual impairment will see at 20 feet. And so what someone in quotes we call normal vision or normal people, when they stand at 200 feet, they can see with no stress. Someone with visual impairment would have to stand at 20 feet before he or she can see that thing. And so when someone is going through that, then it means the person has what we call visual impairment. And also we have something we call field of vision. And so legally, they can say that you have visual impairment when your field of vision is limited, is limited, that is within 20 degrees. Now, when we talk of field of vision, it's 180 degrees. And when we talk of field of vision, we are talking of when you look straight, without turning your eyeball, you should be able to see something from your left and something from your right without turning. And so someone with visual impairment, when a person looks straight, the person cannot see from left or right what is coming from left and right. And so if you have that problem, it means you have what? Visual impairment, or you have problem with your vision. But you cannot just listen to this video and based on it and conclude that, oh, I'm experiencing this, so it means I have visual impairment. No, you have to go to the hospital for doctors to make diagnosis and all that. And so legally, that's how we classify someone with visual impairment. One, based on visual acuity, and also two, based on the person's field of vision. And then educationally, we say that someone has visual impairment. I'm going to read something. He said, children who are able to use their sight and rely on other senses, such as hearing and touch, are described as educationally blind. And so educationally, we can say you are blind or you have visual impairment if the person has to rely on other senses, that is hearing, touch, in order to be able to learn. And so the person the eyeballs might be on all right, but the person will have to rely more on hearing or have to rely more on touch before they can learn. We can say the person is educationally blind. And so when we talk of visual impairment, we are looking at blindness. We are also looking at partially sighted, that is those with low vision. And low vision, we have refractive errors. Okay, we have refractive errors such as hyperopia, myopia, and astigmatism. And we know myopia has to do with short-sightedness. Okay, it has to do with short-sightedness. And also hyperopia, that is far-sightedness. And so people with hyperopia, I want to read something. It says that the person can only visualize objects at a distance but not close. And so if someone is suffering from hyperopia, they can only see things from afar, but when it's too close, they cannot. And myopia, too, the person can visualize objects at a close range. And so when the thing is very far, they can't see. And astigmatism has to do with blur vision. The vision is blur. And also we have something we call cataracts. They all fall under what? low vision or refractive errors. Do you get it? And so if someone is having cataract, that is pressure on the eye, and they can't see well, we call all that, we can describe all that under what? Refractive errors. Now we are going to look at what causes visual impairment and some of the things that, especially when it comes to children. Now we want our focus to be more of children, because children are the ones, they cannot really tell how they see. A child might not be seeing well, and he or she cannot tell whether how they are seeing is right or wrong. And most children are failing in school, not because they are bad academically, but because their vision is not right. And that is because 80% of learning depends on what we see or how we see. And so if a child's vision is not correct, it can affect the child's learning, and you might think that the child is academically poor. No. And some of the mistakes teachers do in class, because they don't know that this child is having problem with the vision, some of the teachers will tend to tell the child, hey, you are supposed to sit here, you are supposed to sit here. Maybe that position you are giving the child will not help the child's sight, or will not help the child to see things well from the board, but because you don't know. And so it's very important that we know all these things, so that when kids, especially children who cannot open their mouth and tell that they have vision problem, or children who are not able to even tell what they are going through, when you see some of these signs, you can tell that this child is going through this. So let me quickly take the child to the hospital and then have some diagnosis. And so some of the causes, we have genetic factors, and we have environmental factors. And so genetics, sometimes they are born with it. Naturally, they have it. They didn't do anything. And it's not because the person was cursed. It's not because the mother was cursed. Some of us, when mothers give birth to children with physical challenges or mental or visual impairment, we think that they are cursed, and so we end up concluding that, oh, this is a cursed child. In some communities, they will tend to ask you to go and give the child to the sea, especially when the child has mental disability. Then we conclude that, oh, this child is for the water body, so let's go and leave it for the water and all that. No, it doesn't mean that the parents was cursed. It could be anything. When a woman is pregnant, anything can happen. Even physical abuse can cause disability to the child in the womb. Some of the things parents take in, some of the things you drink. That is why you are always advised that when you are pregnant, even when you are not pregnant, you are not supposed to do self-medication. And to talk of when you are pregnant, you do self-medication, it can lead to that. Anything at all, even a mother just falling can even cause something to the child, to the womb. And also genetics, sometimes they have that issue in the family, and so the possibility that the child will also have that is also there. So genetic can also be there. And also sometimes, even when a mother is giving birth, through childbirth, anything can happen that can affect the vision of the child. And also we have environmental conditions that can cause a child or any other person to have visual impairment. It could be just a sand that entered into the eyes of the person. It could be the child fell and then it affected the child's vision. It could be a tumor in the brain that is affecting the vision of the child. And so anything at all can happen. That is why we need to be very careful. Infection can also affect the vision of a child. And also some of the, especially those living in areas where their water bodies are not good, the water that they drink, they use to bath are not good. We call something river blindness. They can also have that. Drugs, the drugs that you give to the child, accidents, any of these can affect the vision of the child. So when somebody is going through that, you don't sit there and conclude that the child has been cursed or the family are cursed. No, it is not cursed. It's something that can happen to any of us or anyone. Now we are going to talk about some of the things you need to consider when you see a child behaving this way. It should ring a bell that maybe this child is having some problem with his vision. And so let me quickly rush the child to the hospital. If a child comes complaining As a teacher, as a parent, don't take it like some complaints. You think, oh, it's okay, you'll be fine, go and sit down. No, we need to what? Be cautious of it, especially when the child complains not once, twice, but severally. It should ring a bell that I need to run this child to the hospital. And so we are going to look at some behaviors that children exhibit that should ring a bell. And so behaviors like when you see a child rubbing the eyes excessively, it should tell you that my child, there's something wrong, so I have to take the child to the hospital. Or as a teacher, it should tell you that you should talk to the parent that this your child has been rubbing the eyes continuously, so take the child to the hospital. We don't just have to ignore sightings. And also, close or covers one eye and tilt the head. So a child might be covering the eye this way and tilt the head, try to see from the board. A teacher, you see the child doing this continuously in the classroom, it should tell you that there's something wrong. You cannot diagnose because you're not a doctor. And so what you do is referral. Yes, talk to the parent to take the child to the hospital. If you have a child or you see a child blinks more unusual, the child will be blinking. Every second here and there, the child will be blinking. It should ring a bell. And also, if in the classroom or even at home, you tell your child to read something, but the child would have to hold the book close this way to read. It should tell you that there's something wrong, because the child should be able to put the book down, and at a certain angle, the child should be able to see and read. But if the child will have to hold the book very close to the eye before he or she can read, it should ring a bell that as a teacher or as a parent, you should give your child medical attention. You should go for screening. If the child is unable to distinct things clearly, if the child is standing at a distance and the child cannot see well, maybe the child is suffering from low vision, you don't know, you have to quickly take the child to hospital. If the child squints the eyelids like this, try to see, will be squinting the eyelids, exhibit irregular eye movement, you see that the eyeball will be moving round and will be moving unnecessarily, it should ring a bell. If the child has difficulties seeing things from distance or skipping over words, when you ask a child to read in the classroom, you see that your child will be, or the student will be reading and will be skipping words regularly, it should tell you that there's something wrong with this child, and so medical attention should be given. And so as a teacher in the classroom, you don't see these things and then overlook it. Most kids are failing in exams not because they are poor academically. Their vision is not good. Appearance, some of the things that we see, the child might not be behaving this way, but the appearance should also tell you. If a child has red eye, you see this child is always having red eye, inform the parents to do the needful, to take the child to the hospital. If the child is having inflamed or watery eye, you see that this child, the eyes are always watery, it should tell you something. Also, some of the complaints that kids will come up with, my eyes are itching me. A child will come and tell you, continue, say, my eyes are itching me. You say, oh, go and sit down, you'll be fine. Mommy, my eyes are itching me. Go and sit down, you'll be fine. No. If the child keeps on complaining, itching, don't just fetch water and start washing the face and the eyes and think everything will be okay. Take the child to the hospital. If the child complains, I cannot see well, you should give it attention. If the child complains more of headache, nausea, and dizziness, if the child complains more of that, don't just give some painkiller to the child and say, go and sleep, you'll be fine. No, take the child to the hospital for proper diagnosis. The child might be experiencing some vision problems and you will not know. Blurred or double vision. If the child complains that I see things in double, don't think that is a joke. Especially if the complaint is not just once, but it keeps on coming, it should tell you that I have to take this child to the hospital. And so some of these things, as teachers in the classroom, as parents, we should not be blind to it. And also, it's very important that our kids as babies are screened, their visions are screened. If you have a baby from 2 weeks going or a month going, the child should be able to see something. And so if you hold a key or anything colorful in front of the child should be able to see. And so if you hold something colorful or anything and you move it around and the child does not try to turn the eye to see, it should quickly tell you that, let me take this child to the hospital for the eyes or the vision of that child should be screened. During my master's thesis, I did something on vision. That is why I'm so much concerned about vision. And I realized that most parents, they don't give attention to the vision of their children. And also, we have something we call inclusive education. And I know most teachers are aware, whereby we are so much concerned about every child should be included in the regular classroom. You cannot say that this child is visually impaired, so it should be taken to a Kropong school for the blind. No. You cannot say that this child, we cannot accept this child in this school because we don't have facilities that will help that child. No, it is the school's responsibility to make sure that they create an environment that will accept every child. That is what we call inclusive education, that every child must be included in the regular classroom. And we have a policy for that. And in one of the policies, it stated that every school periodically should screen children, and the screening includes their vision, their everything that concerns the child. And I am more concerned about vision because that is my area. And during my research, I realized that we don't do it. We don't do it, and even teachers don't know about that. And so a child will stay in the school for the whole year, for 2 years, 5 years, and the school will never bother to organize vision screening for the kids in the school. And so a child will be working in the school, will be having vision problem, and the child will not see. Now, let me give you a typical example. Growing up as a child, I used to have problem with my vision. I'll be feeling pains and I'll be scratching my eyeballs and all that. Mine was obvious. I was uncomfortable, so I'll be going to the hospital and they'll be giving me drugs to treat it, and it was okay. Now, someone that I know, he never knew that he's myopic. He was never aware that he's myopic until he went for driving school, because before they told him that you are myopic, you have this problem. And so some of the problems as a child, you will never know. Parents will never know until screening are done. If the child's vision are not screened, the child might be having that problem. He or she will grow with it. And so imagine this person with myopic. He didn't know. And so in class, in school, you can imagine maybe this person sat at a position that wasn't helping him in class and was not able to see well. And so he'll be writing things wrongly, and it will affect his academics, and will say that he's poor or she's poor. Meanwhile, it is the vision that is not helping the child. And so it must be all of us, our concern. It's rather unfortunate that in Ghana, we make policies, but we don't implement them. And so the policy states that periodically, schools should ensure that the vision or everything concerning a child will be screened, including the vision. We are not doing it. You go to schools, teachers don't know about it. You talk about vision screen, say, hey, is it our job? The headmaster, the headmistress, the proprietor, they are not aware of it. Meanwhile, it's in the policy. And so that is why I've taken the time to do these videos once a while, so that whoever is watching me will also learn from it, so that we all can help save the vision of our kids. Do you know what? One of the painful disabilities in this world is blindness. One of the painful disabilities. If you have not been blind before, you will not understand. But when someone is hearing impaired, the person can manage it very well. In fact, when someone is hearing impaired and the person is coming, you will not know. You will not know that this person is hearing impaired. But if someone has problem with the vision, it affects everything. And so imagine having a child with visual impairment, you can see the pain that child will be going through. And so if you see some of these signs, or kids make some of these complaints, don't be deaf to it or don't be blind to it and think that it's nothing. Even if it's nothing, take the child to the hospital and let the doctors conclude that it's nothing. If they have been blind, my parents have been blind towards it, and they haven't taken me to the hospital, probably I would have been blind by now. I don't know. Anything is possible. So some of the factors we need to consider as teachers in the classroom, some of the factors to consider when you are teaching in the classroom, so that it will benefit all. You don't know that this one has low vision. You don't know that this one has astigmatism, blurred vision. You don't know whether this child has cataracts. You don't know whether this child is myopic or hyperopia. You don't know. And so some of the things you need to consider. One, the first thing is sitting position. Okay, sitting position in the classroom. Allow children to willingly say, I want to sit here. Yes, we know some children are very stubborn in the class and you want to put order. But if you allow them and you give them that room and find out, why do you want to sit here? Maybe the child can tell you, when I sit here, I'm able to see very well from the blackboard. Do you get it? So allow them to choose their sitting position. Do not choose it for them by force. You will sit at the back by force. You will sit close to the board by force. Maybe that will not serve the interest of the child. And also, one of the things we need to look at is brightness. Brightness. Now, when it comes to seeing, you cannot see well if you don't have enough light. And so if the classroom or wherever you are telling the child to see from, the light there is not enough, it's going to affect the vision or the seeing of that child. And so we also have to consider brightness for the child. And then the sizes of the images. You are writing on the board. Write in a way that a child sitting at the back, very far end, will be able to see. You don't write very small. You write something in a book for a child. Write it in a way that the child can read. You are not a doctor to hide prescriptions from patients. No. Also, contrast. Contrast is very important in the classroom. The board you are writing on, if the board is black, make sure that whatever you are using to write will appear very well. You don't have blackboard, then you go and choose blue chalk to write on, and you expect the child to see and see very well. And so consider contrast. And also, when it comes to how we see, time is very important. The time the person is viewing that thing is also very important. You need to consider, and you also need to consider distance from which you are telling the child to view something. And so you take a child to some distance, and then the child is not seeing, and you tell the child that you are blockheaded, you don't know anything. No. Why not consider the distance? And so if you have low vision children in the classroom, you have to consider all these things, especially if you are aware that this child has low vision. You need to consider all these things. You don't treat them like just every other child in the classroom. That is why we call it special. They are special children. And so they need what? Special attention. Now, some of the mistakes that parents do in the house is that when we have children with special needs, we tend to want to do everything for them. We don't give them the chance to do certain things. When you go to the school, for the blind, a Cropon and those places, you realize that a child with visual impairment can cook. A child with visual impairment can fix a button. A child with visual impairment can sweep. And so we need to allow them to do these things. I had this friend during my first degree who was visually impaired, low vision. Sometimes when we are even walking, I even forget that she has low vision. And so when we get to places that I need to give her some verbal instruction that, hey, where we have gotten to, there's a pit there, or there's something that we have some steps there. And so be careful so that you don't bump into them. So raise your leg. You know, when you are walking with them, you need to give them some of these verbal guidance and all that. Sometimes I forget because the way she does her things, you will not even think that she's having this problem. And so something will happen, then I'll quickly come back to my mind and say, hey, I'm working with this person, I need to give her some verbal instructions. So it is that when you introduce them to certain things, they can do it. They are not handicapped. They are not burdened. They can do some of these things. Some of them can travel. I have some of these students, Winneba, they can travel from Winneba to Accra alone with nobody helping them. And so if you give them the chance to do certain things, just introduce them and they will be fine. We should not prevent them from doing certain things for themselves because we think they are visually impaired. Okay, so when we come to the classroom, also as teachers, when you are writing on the board, some of the things that you use of strong felt pen or white chalk. Just as I said, if you have a blackboard, don't go and use brown chalk to write on a blackboard or brown marker to write on a white or brown marker to write on something black. No. Also use of non-shining paper and use of enlarged print. And so if you are printing something for them, a child with visual impairment, make sure that you don't use the normal size 12 or go below. It should be something bigger. You should increase the font size for them. Now, when it comes to communication in the classroom too, ensure the child's attention before giving instruction. Some of the mistakes teachers do have, some of the teachers do, is that they will ask you a question. What is smarter? They will not even say anything. They will just say, what is smarter? The child, because the child is visually impaired or blind, the child might not know that he or she is the one you are talking to. And so this is how you go about it. Kwame, Kofi, what is smarter? The moment you mention his or her name, the child's attention will know that I'm the one the teacher is talking to. And then communication will go on. You don't just talk and expect them to figure out that you are talking to them. Demarcate chalkboard and write legibly, taking into account the concept of visual acuity and field of vision. And so just as we said, visual acuity, the person's visual acuity, what is the distance of the child? What you are writing, the child's distance, can the child see? And also visual field, is the visual field within 20 degrees? Then you need to consider. So you need to demarcate the blackboard so that when a child visual field is not good, the child can turn to this side of the board, look at it, and write within that angle before he or she will come to the next board. You don't just write because you are writing. Provide verbal explanation for what is written on the board. So as a teacher in the classroom with student with visual impairment, when you write something on the board, verbally say it verbally. Oh, you write Kofi is going to school. So say it, Kofi is going to school, so that the child will know what is written on the board. If you don't say it and the child is just there, will not know what is going on in the class, and he or she might not participate. Light source should be behind the child, and so the reflection should not be straight in the child's face. It should be behind the child so that the child can see whatever is in front of him or her very well. Encourage the child's interpersonal interaction between sighted peers. Don't say, hey, when kids in the classroom, they don't seem to mingle with children with visual impairment. Encourage them so that they will see that we are all the same. It's rather unfortunate that this one cannot see well. The fact that this person cannot see well does not make the person less of a human being. We are all the same, so that you all can encourage proper communication among them, and treat child same as peers. Treat all of them equally. The child with visual impairment is not less of human being. He or she is equal, just like any other child. And so treat them equal. The way you talk to this child, talk to them the same. Show love to all of them. We all deserve it. Okay, also we are also going to look at classroom arrangement. If someone is having visual impairment, then you should know that certain things must be done when it comes to arranging, so that they can have the opportunity to work and work very well. Not in a classroom where everything is crowded together. And so when a child walks into them, bumps into chairs and tables and all that, no, create sufficient traffic zones for ease movement. And so there should be ease movement where the child will know that I can pass here and go out safely without bumping into any chair. Do not leave doors half closed. It's either you are closing the door so that when a child gets close, he or she will use the hand to figure out if the door is closed. Do not leave it half closed. No, if you're opening it, to open it wide so that they can easily walk through. Provide light table and boxes for child to keep materials. And so when it comes to learning in the classroom, they should have enough space so that they can place their things well where they want to place it, so that if they want to have access, they can easily have access. It's the same thing in the house too. When it comes to children with visual impairment in the house, what parents need to bear in mind that when the child place something here, that is where it's supposed to be. Don't take it from there and go and place it somewhere else and expect the child to be looking for. No, they don't have that energy to be searching. And so when they place something here, that is where it's supposed to be, so that they can always have access, because they know that this is where my destiny is. Let me use myself as an example. I am one person, I find it difficult searching with my eyes. I have my eyes working perfectly, but I always search with my hands. And so when I place something here, I know that it's here. I will go and search for it without using my vision. I'll just be using my hands to search for whatever I am looking for. Do you get it? And so if I place something somewhere and you go and take it from there, you worry me. I don't like searching things like that. And so even though I have my vision working perfectly, I most of the time search with my hands. Do you get it? So I'll be searching even in the dark. So there is no way there's something in the dark that I know that I place it here, I cannot find it. I'll just go and be searching with my hands. And so even me, with my vision 100%, I still do search with my hands. And when I place something here, I want it to be there. Then imagine a child with visual impairment. When they place something here, that is where it's supposed to be. Don't go and change the position of that thing. And also, avoid placing children in locations where they face light directly. So when you are placing them in a location, make sure that light will not be reflecting on their vision, because they will find it difficult. Imagine even you yourself, if somebody should throw torchlight on your face, you will try to block the light rays. And so we need to consider all that. And so these are some of the few things we need to consider when we are handling children with visual impairment in the classroom. Before I end this video, I'm going to also talk about some of the independent work we need to assign them to. Provide containers for items so that they can be organized, because individuals with visual impairment, they like to be organized. A book stand should be given to them so that they can arrange their things on it. Close work should be limited to short periods of time and alternate with distance work. Do you get it? And so you need to do this alternation for children with visual impairment. So these are a few points I want to share with you, and also require the child to care for his or her own materials in order to foster sense of independence. And so teach them to be independent, so that when they need something, they will always not call someone that come and search for this thing for me. No. So teach them to live an independent life, because most of them can live independent life. I had a lecturer who was visually impaired and was able to come to class, teach very well. And so who says one is visually impaired, they cannot live a normal life? They can live a normal life. And it will depend on how you and I, what we introduce to them, how we treat them, how we see them, the kind of perceptions that we have concerning individuals with visual impairment. And so let's know that they are not a burden. We just need to give them the right attitude Stop labeling them. Stop the stigma. Stop calling them names. Stop making them feel they are burden. They are not burdens. So if you're a parent here and you have a child with visual impairment, just know that if you introduce the child to the right things, the child can still live an independent life. And if you're a teacher in the classroom, bear in mind that all children need equal opportunities and access. Do not prevent them because they have visual problem. You can help them also to learn very well. Those who are totally blind with no light perception can do Braille. They can Braille. Me, I am not visually impaired, but I read Braille. I Braille. When you come and I'm Brailling, you will be surprised. And I read Braille, but I don't read Braille with my fingers. I read Braille with my vision because I have vision. So what we advise is that if you have a child with low vision, encourage them to use their eyes more instead of using more of their fingers. Encourage them to use their eyes more to read, to search for things and all that. And so I'm going to end here, and I want to say thank you for watching me. Do well to share this video so that someone out there will also learn. Thanks. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.